The following video is one in a series on spiritual resilience training, a non-religious view of personal values and their dynamics with others. The contents reflect a variety of principles and practices of systems theory and relational counseling for team building and family resilience. Although the series is intended to support Army Corps values, each video also encourages the viewer to reflect on their current prominent values in specific situations and to consider what values may be more appropriate to means and results that are honorable and helpful with others. Chaplain Dillard initiates creating and posting these videos. Their contents and YouTube's linked videos do not necessarily reflect specific beliefs, practices, requirements, or endorsements of the Department of Defense, its subordinate organizations, or other groups with which Chaplain Dillard is affiliated.
Welcome back. We're continuing our mini series on emotional intelligence. Maybe you've seen some of the previous series. We've done something on conflicting emotions and conflicting values when we feel like we're pulled in different directions because we want one thing and we feel sad about it. We want to draw back because we feel like we're losing that value, something that we treasure, or we're drawing forward. We feel conflicted and want to engage somebody because we perceive a treasure, a good thing in that relationship, or we want to avoid because we perceive a threat. Those are all things within us, conflicting values and conflicting emotions. And we've looked at competing values and emotions, that we want something and we perceive, whether it's true or not, that the other person with whom we have a relationship in the moment, a boss, a spouse, family member, a friend, that they want something very different, and we're butting heads about how to get what we want versus what they want. May be true, may not be true, may be good, may not be good in terms of what we each want, but the reality of conflicting values and emotions is very real. Then more recently we looked at mixed emotions, and that's not so much about wanting different things either within us or between us, but having several different emotional reactions to the same thing. Our perception of a task or a relationship, and we feel bad, mad, sad, and glad at the same time about that same relationship or that same task. And it's hard to process feeling so many different things. We're not quite sure what to do with it. Today, we're going to look at layered emotions, and that is something entirely different. It's been said that some people wear their emotions on their sleeve, meaning that it's very easy to see it and they're right out there and ready to share with everybody, whether you want them to share those emotions or not. There are other emotions that are deeper, that may be under those, and not necessarily layers of the same emotion, but different emotions, and that can be very confusing to us or the other person. So let's take a look at the significance of that and what to do with that and why that's important. As I mentioned previously, without self-awareness and empathy of others' layered emotions, we risk running on autopilot in that relationship. No course corrections in our C3 IRA or theirs, and that is values of care, commitment, control, integrity, recognition, and or acceptance. I've mentioned in previous videos that these six are the result, or identifying these six, are the result of a very long study with the University of Denver and lots of couples and individuals, that they're kind of the heart level, the very core level of things that we tend to treasure or value. And unless we can filter through our layers of emotion and help others filter through theirs, we can run on autopilot and just looking at the surface emotions that are kind of on their sleeves or on ours, but we're really not getting down to the heart of the issue. And as I've said before too, we cannot accurately define a solution until we have accurately and well defined the problem. So we have to peel those layers back within ourselves or within others, with care of course, to really discern what is the bottom line concern. And there's a few questions we need to ask ourselves, one of which is, how have specific emotions historically worked for you or me? Did they have a second order effect of creating more or less intimacy? Did they have a second order effect, meaning in other people, of effecting more candor, more difficult honesty with other people? Did they have a second order effect of protecting us from something? Did they have a second order effect of care? Now let's go back to that question. I asked, how has emotion historically worked for you? Specific types of emotion. Because we can use anger to create distance. For example, it's very popular with soldiers before they deploy. A lot of soldiers get into a verbal altercation with their spouse or family members because it's easier to leave mad than to leave sad. If you leave mad, you want to break quickly and just go. But if you're feeling sad, you want to cling. And subconsciously, a lot of us know we need to go, and so we get mad. Very unhealthy, but very common. Sadness can help bring about the appearance, at least, of greater intimacy. Historically, if we've experienced that it draws others in to want to care for us. Fear can help, can elicit, sometimes in a manipulative way, getting others to be protective of us, especially if that was a pattern in childhood. Saying that we're afraid or acting like we're afraid can really elicit some helicopter parenting in what looks like care, but can end up being a very unhealthy pattern. So we see that emotions can be used consciously or subconsciously to elicit second order effects in other people. Another question to ask ourselves is, what are we actually trying to accomplish, consciously or not? And that may be a third order effect of our agenda, a third order effect of our role in that relationship in the moment, or a third order effect for our peace. And those go together. You think about the surface emotion, okay, let's think surface, and then second order effect of what it has on the people, and third order effect of what we are trying to accomplish. Let's say on the surface, I'm wearing the emotion of joy, of feeling glad and happy. I might want to elicit a second order effect with somebody else of more relationship, that they'll spend more time with me. But, and I'll tell you, this is the truth with my wife early on, that was a third order effect of wanting to accomplish my agenda. I figured if I can look happy, she'll feel closer, and I'm more likely to get done what I want to get done today, whatever that is. Buying this thing, not buying this thing, having a difficult conversation later, so I'm kind of butting her up before it goes. That surface emotion that I'm showing in order to build intimacy to get something else done. Those are layers of emotion, because under that, I might actually be feeling scared that I'm not going to get my agenda done, or I might be feeling angry that I presented this last week and it didn't get done, and by golly, now I'm going to put on the happy face, or sadness that we haven't spent a lot of time together, and so now I'm feigning joy in order to get this thing done. So there are layers of emotion. My face is smiling, maybe I've even made my eyes smile and gestures and tone and everything else, but under it I'm feeling something different, because I want the third order effect of my agenda and the second order effect of the more intimacy, so I present this first order emotion, the surface emotion of feeling glad and happy. Does that make sense? Of course, we can do the same thing with our roles. We have roles as a spouse, as a parent, as a supervisor or a subordinate, as a role model in a neighborhood, and we might have core bottom line emotions about those things, that we want to be more in control in our role, but we're not, and so we're either feeling bad, mad, sad, or glad about that. That's at the very bottom, but that might not be safe to present, or we might be very uncomfortable with that particular emotion of how to present it, and so consciously or unconsciously, we layer things on top of that. We want to accomplish our role of being a better subordinate, and so we're trying to, the second order effect of greater honesty, getting feedback from our other people of how to do that well, and so we might put on the airs of nervousness. I don't quite know what I'm doing, I really need you to help me even though underneath we're really feeling kind of angry. I'm doing my best and you're not recognizing it, but we put on the top layer emotion of anxiety or fear to help them teach us more. Could be conscious, could be unconscious, but unless we're able to get down to the bottom level of what's going on, we're really just, it's like surgery. Nobody has surgery just on the skin when it's actually one of the internal organs that is at risk. We need to get down to the root of the issue to truly fix the concern. A third question is, what are we trying to avoid by using a top layer of emotion? And generally speaking, we are trying to avoid the discomfort of anxiety, feeling pulled in different directions. It could be that we're trying to avoid the anxiety of more time with a challenger, which could result in their criticism, which could result in our self-examination, which could result in questions about our responsibility, which could result in even more anxiety. So we see that trickle effect, and the brain works real fast, consciously and subconsciously, even if we're not thinking about it. And we're wanting to avoid that general anxiety of the emotions that we don't know what to do with by staying away from a challenger, somebody who would question whether we're doing the right thing or cause us to question if we're doing the right thing. On the other hand, we might be trying to avoid less time with an affirmer, their abandonment, at least how we perceive it, and our feelings of loneliness, which is going to cause us many times to question our worth, and in turn will result in greater anxiety. So a lot of it just comes down to anxiety that we're trying to avoid. But that's really avoiding a feeling, and therefore we're not getting down to the root of the issue. Is it true that I have been abandoned or would be abandoned? Is it true that this criticism the other person might offer to me is valid and to be received by me or not? We can't, if we just avoid, we can't get down to the root of it. We have to be willing to process through our layers of emotion and not avoid them. That's like being afraid of needles and never getting the shot. Then you never get the surgery, then you never get fixed. So we simply have to be able to endure a certain amount of discomfort. So the last question is, what are we really trying to accomplish? And that is generally more C3 IRA. We're probably trying to get more care, commitment, control, integrity, recognition, and or acceptance. I said that was the last question. Really, the last question is, who in our lives can help us do that? Now, we may not be comfortable with the person that we're standing in front of to help us process through that, but there is probably somebody in our life that we do trust and that knows us well. That's the person that we need to help us see things in ourselves that we don't see. Heart level values that we have, and how sometimes consciously or unconsciously we manipulate for a second order effect and a third order effect, and we're kind of using emotion on the top to achieve those. And we need to talk with those people and listen to those people and work through that. Otherwise, we'll run on autopilot. Next week, we'll take a specific look at what wrong can look like when we don't work through our layered emotion or help others work through it. And in the last week, the third part of the series, we will look at what right can look like when we process through those layers and have intentional decisions, not autopilot. And I hope you'll join us then.
At the release date of this video, I am stationed with Research Development and Engineering Command, RDECOM, at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. Because the majority of our personnel are in this area, I spend most of my time here. I do, however, travel to our distant units based on command priorities and budget. I place these videos on YouTube for broad visibility to Army personnel and their families, but I hope the videos will be helpful to others too. If you are assigned to RDECOM and want to request specific topics by video, training on site or by VTC, or confidential counseling on site or by secure webcam, you can contact me at jeffrey.d.dillard.mil@mail.mil.